It's fall, y'all. Hello folks, Grace here, and thank you for joining me. Currently, it is October and we are in the midst of fall. And what better way to celebrate this season than to make pumpkins? I had all the yarn I needed to make a set of 3 pumpkins, each their own shade of orange. I did toy with the idea of making these jack-o'-lanterns, which would honestly have been so cute. And if any of you guys do it, please post pictures because I'm here for it and I love them already. However, these particular pumpkins I am planning to use for decor for Thanksgiving, so I had to contain my spooky self and just leave them be as pumpkins. So, crocheting in the round, these are made essentially by making almost a marshmallow shape, where it's flat on the bottom, growing out, and then kind of a tube going up, and then you close it flat again on the top. How you get from that to a pumpkin shape is by stuffing it, because that pushes out the kind of tube portion. So once that marshmallow is stuffed and then sealed, you do these stitches around the edges and pull them very tight, and that is what creates these ridges that pumpkins are known for. Then after creating the ridges, I attached the stem, which was done by just crocheting in the round again into some of the smaller stitches and then building up from there, joining those together at the top. I also created this little curlicue guy that is done by doing 1 chain stitch and then putting 2 single crochet into each of those stitches on the way back in. Tension from the 2 double crochet causes it to curl like this, which you will see that in many projects, like those little hats that people make for babies that have hair ringlets. That's how you do that. It's very simple. But, you know, these are commonly seen on pumpkins, little bits of curly vine. So I decided to put that on the big one. Overall, I'm really happy with how they turned out. I wish that I had notes on when I had done this before, because otherwise I would have made this guy a lot taller. When you stuff it and then you're pulling these stitches down very tightly, it takes away a lot of the height. So this guy was meant to be probably about 1/2 inch. I don't know. That's an inch. Yeah, like 1/2 inch higher. And so when I pulled these stitches through, that made him much squatter and much shorter. But the beauty about pumpkins is that they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, so none of them are wrong. And so I have my 3 little pumpkins here. I'm very happy with them. I'm very pleased with, I used up almost all of this light orange. There wasn't enough for another project, but I added it to a roll of yarn that I used for like utility purposes. I call it my magic ball because that's what Pinterest told me to call it. And it's just a bunch of lengths of yarn that are big enough for something, but not big enough to like actually make anything out of themselves. And I just use that for like washcloths or utilitarian things. If I need to make like an extra layer in between something, which doesn't happen too much. Crochet is pretty warm on its own. So that is, you know, 1 roll out of my stash, which is nice. After making this pumpkin, I was a little bit hesitant about the color. I was like, I don't know so much. And then I went to the supermarket and they had a bunch of pumpkins outside, and they had a bunch of pumpkins exactly this color. I was like, oh, well, there's a sign. My yarn's fine. This guy, I made him very little because I wanted it to be a little pyramid, and I liked the contrast of the mid-tone, the light, and then back to another mid-tone. These 2 are actually, they look very similar from a distance, but this one is actually much more yellow and this one's much more red. And I think that when they're actually pumpkins, it's much easier to tell. When they're just yarn sitting next to each other like this, you can, it's not as not as big a difference, but when they're made into pumpkins, it's actually a pretty big difference. Obviously, I didn't use up all of this yarn, so I still have a sizable chunk of it. Unclear what I will use this for in the future, but maybe I'll just make another pumpkin with it, sew a face on it, and make a jack-o'-lantern another time. Overall, this is a pretty simple process. Once you learn how to crochet in the round, it's pretty basic, kind of like just make a bucket and then close it. The one thing that I did mention before, these stitches, I don't know if you can see where it was already stuffed and I was closing it in above that. The stitches really pull apart because they have tension on them that the initial stitches do not. So that's something to be mindful of. Again, there was a trick. I just couldn't find it. I don't know what it was that I had done to fix that last time. I'm pretty sure there was a YouTube tutorial involved and I just couldn't find it. And of course, silly me didn't take any notes. Always take notes. Part of me wants to get like a big, almost like a scrapbook and just keep information on all the projects I make so that if I ever go back and be like, oh, well, I want to make those pumpkins again, I can be like, oh, wow, remember this and don't do that. Something akin to like the Bibling that costumers do, where they have, you know, all the scraps of fabric and all the information about the project. That'd be real nifty. I don't really have too much more to say about this project. It was a very simple process. I love the outcome, and I hope you do too. While I had intended for this to be a quick 1 or 2 day project, it actually ended up taking me about 5. This wasn't due to any particular struggle with the project itself. I just didn't have as much time as I initially expected. I had made pumpkins like this before for a friend a few years back, and boy, do I wish that I had taken some notes. It's a good habit to get into on any project, but this one in particular, there were a lot of little things that I had figured out last time that I just seemed to not remember, like how to properly size a pumpkin or negate the stitches pulling apart once the item was actually stuffed, because the tension kind of spread the stitches apart. I remember having a trick for that and like having that problem solved, and I could not for the life of me remember what it was that I did. I tried a whole bunch of things. Ultimately, problems and all, I love them. They are going to look so cute on my dining room table, especially once I finish the next project I have planned. I want to thank you guys again for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, comment down below with your thoughts, show me your jack-o'-lantern pumpkins. I plan on posting on Fridays, and if you want to make sure you don't miss anything, remember to ring the notification bell. Next in my quest to use up my stash, I am planning on completing an unfinished project that was put down many years ago. Thanks so much.